All right, welcome everyone. Today, we're jumping into a really powerful modern parable. It's a story that feels like it could have been written 1,000 years ago, but it's also incredibly relevant right now. At its heart, it's about a philosophical duel happening right in the middle of a marketplace. A huge clash between two ideas that honestly shape all of our lives: the heavy weight of conformity and the freeing laughter of the individual.
We're actually going to start with the very last line of the story because it just perfectly sets the stakes. I mean, think about that. This isn't just some clever debate. We're talking about a force that's powerful enough to hold the entire cosmos in place. This really frames everything we're about to explore around one central question. What is this laughter? And why on earth is it so important? So, to unpack all that, here's our game plan. First, we'll meet the two main players in The Jester versus Gravity. Then, we're going to hear the case for the prosecution in The Chains of the Herd. And right after that, the jester's defense in A Sovereign Tapestry. We'll see how it all comes to a head in The Laughter That Ascends. And finally, we'll look at the aftermath in The End of the Interlude.
Okay, let's dive in and set the scene for this dialogue of sovereign opposites. We find ourselves in a marketplace, but something's off. The air is just thick with this weird oppressive feeling. The whole place is filled with what the story calls kneeling last men. Just picture a crowd that's totally passive, compliant, everyone the same. And it's into this atmosphere of sameness that our two figures appear, and you can just feel the tension ratchet up immediately. It's like the air itself is getting heavier, bracing for impact. On one side, you've got the Harlequin, the jester. He's all about motion, vibrant color, and what's called sovereign laughter. He's the symbol of a dynamic, self-creating life. And on the other side, you have the shadow. It's not really a person, more of a presence. It's dense, suffocating, the embodiment of every you must, every single rule and collective expectation that weighs us all down. So this main antagonist, the spirit of gravity, isn't some cartoon villain. The story is very clear. It's a psychological weight. Think of it as the anchor of the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times. It's that internal pressure, that mix of collective guilt and conformity that we all feel. And that's what makes it an adversary you can't just run away from, because in a way, it lives inside the human condition itself. So the stage is set, and now the shadow makes its case. This is its grand accusation against the jester, and really everything he stands for. And the shadow's argument comes with the force of a collapsing star. I mean, wow. Its core accusation is simple. The jester is a danger. And why? Because his whole philosophy of being an individual, well, that cuts the cord that connects people to the group, to the safety and security of the herd. In the shadow's view, he's a fundamental threat to civilization. And the shadow gets really specific with its charges. It says the jester's inner feminine energy, his anima, is just a flimsy ghost. And his inner masculine, his animus, is nothing more than a destructive vandal's hammer. The whole idea of becoming an overman, of transcending our limits, the shadow calls that suicidal pride. It argues that without the weight of tradition, the camel's burden, the jester's so-called freedom is just an empty, meaningless void. Bottom line, civilization needs the structural lead of tradition to survive, and the jester is trying to knock the whole thing down. But oh man, the jester has a comeback, and it's a powerful one. He doesn't just deny what the shadow says, he completely reframes the entire argument. This is his rebuttal. The jester's counterargument kicks off with his absolutely brilliant insight. He looks at the shadow's perfect world, this world of total order, safety, and zero conflict, and he calls it what it is: paralysis. The shadow thinks it's offering peace, but the jester says, no, what you're offering is a state where nothing can ever grow or move or truly be alive. And then the jester introduces his own idea of gravity. See, it's not about being weightless, it's about a new gravity. But this weight doesn't come from the external chains of society or the rules of the past. It comes from the will's own internal mass. It's a self-defined purpose. It's a strength you get from integrating your own darkness, your own shadow, not from being crushed by the collective one. And you remember how the shadow called his inner self broken? The jester takes that accusation and turns it into this beautiful metaphor. He says his anima and animus aren't a ghost and a hammer at all. They're the warp and weft, the crisscrossing threads of a sovereign tapestry that he himself is weaving with every single choice he makes. He then mocks the shadow's heavy loom, because all it can make is a suffocating blanket of lead. And this brings us right to the philosophical peak of the whole dialogue. The jester is about to reveal his final, most powerful idea. It's his secret weapon, what the text calls the ultimate weight. And that ultimate weight is amor fati. You might have heard of this philosophical concept. It means the love of one's fate. And this is the key to everything. It's not about just passively accepting what happens to you. It is an active, joyful embrace of everything in your life. The good, the bad, especially the suffering, and seeing it all as absolutely necessary to making you who you are. This is such a beautiful paradox. How can something be heavier than lead, but lighter than laughter? Well, the jester explains that the burden of loving your fate is huge. It's heavy because it means accepting everything. But because it's a burden of love, something you actively choose, it doesn't crush you. It lifts you up. It actually makes you light. So this is the process. This is how the jester swallows the spirit of gravity. It's kind of 3 steps. First, he embraces his fate, the whole thing. Second, he integrates that weight. He doesn't fight it, he turns it into internal ballast, like the weight in a ship that keeps it stable in a storm. And third, with that new internal stability, he achieves ascent. He uses his own self-made gravity to rise above the crushing weight of the herd.
And with that, the debate is over, but its effects are just starting to ripple out. A choice has been put on the table where just moments before there wasn't one. So remember those kneeling last men? For the very first time, they're starting to stir. They're trembling because they feel something shifting inside them. Their own internal gravity, which was always just pulling them down, is now wavering. They're caught in a brand new tug of war, pulled between the Harlequin's light and the specter's darkness. And this is the real takeaway here. The shadow doesn't retreat because it lost the argument. It retreats because the jester did something far more dangerous. He corrupted the marketplace. And how did he do that? By simply offering a choice. Before he showed up, the spirit of gravity was just inevitable. It was the only option. Now there's an alternative. And the mere possibility of another way to live is what robs the shadow of its absolute power. The story ends with this incredibly powerful image. A crack of psychic thunder goes through the crowd. This new awareness, this new choice, it's actually painful, and the last men are left weeping, finally awake from their long, comfortable sleep. But the Harlequin, he's not even looking at them. His gaze is already on the horizon, toward the mountains, toward the next step, because he knows this war of orbits has only just begun. And that leaves us all with a final, really personal question. This parable gives us 2 forces, right? The external, collective weight of lead that holds you down, and the internal, chosen weight of laughter that lifts you up. It's a powerful metaphor for the choices we all face. So the question to really think about is, which gravity is pulling you?